Personally, dislike homosexuals?
Of course, they are disgusting. I never knew what they were doing. That's how I've been told recently that what they do is terrible.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, how was to react to that lunatic? Now, World Pride begins today, actually. Today it begins. 10 days of celebration of the gay community. Next week, I'll be speaking to various members of that community on this show, and I've got to be candid with you and say that this is a very delicate area. I've personally experienced an entirely new set of ideas and people around this issue in the past 6 months or so. I am, as they say, a work in progress, but I can tell you that some of the things I said and thought in the past, well, they were wrong, and I wouldn't say them again. There you are. Now, my epiphany, as it were, began after the Ugandan anti-gay campaign was reignited, and I lamented the ugly language and attitudes of many of the country's indigenous evangelical Christians and American evangelical groups pumping money and support into this anti-gay campaign. As a Catholic Christian, and frankly as a conservative, I had and still have to speak out against this travesty of justice and humanity. At the time, Uganda considered imposing the death penalty on the crime of homosexuality, but then diluted the legislation. It now allows those convicted of homosexuality to be imprisoned for life, defying international disapproval from Western donor nations. The president who you just saw, he formally introduced the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which also outlaws the promotion of homosexuality, whatever that is, and requires citizens to denounce to the police anyone suspected of being gay. It's pretty hideous, isn't it? It's a quote here from the president. No study has shown you can be homosexual by nature. That's why I've agreed to sign the bill, the president said. Outsiders cannot dictate to us. This is our country. I advise friends from the West not to make this an issue, because if they make it an issue, the more they will lose. If the West doesn't want to work with us because of homosexuals, then we have enough space to ourselves here. Oh, my God. I mean, truth and humanity just cry out to be heard. Now, politics aside, this is unjust, it's unfair, it's inhumane, it's anti-life, it's wrong, it's immoral, unethical, anti-God, dark, hideous, and stupid. Is that enough? Now, this isn't the place for a long discourse about the nature of sexuality, but in my experience, and from my reading, if people aren't born gay, they certainly find themselves attracted to those of the same gender at a very early age. Some might choose their sexuality, maybe a few women for political reasons, but it's really largely irrelevant. What consenting people do in private, as long as it harms nobody, is absolutely up to them. Now, I find some of the excesses of the Pride Parade vulgar and annoying, and I suspect some of that will be repeated next week. I also find some of the intolerance and triumphalism of some gay activists in North America and Europe to be offensive, and I know that a lot of gay people agree with me on this. But that has nothing to do with the fact that in Uganda, and much of Africa, and Russia, and even allegedly progressive Brazil, gay people are beaten up, they're persecuted, they're killed. Now, imagine just for a moment if your child was gay and suffered such a fate simply because they love someone of the same gender. Imagine if your child had to live in hiding, was called a pervert or a sodomite, was beaten up, killed. No, none of my kids are gay. I know people have said that's not true. But what has personal sympathy got to do with human empathy? Nor have I been pressurized to change my view. Look, I'm 55 years old. I'm pretty successful. I've no need to listen to anybody anymore. If I've matured and evolved, it's actually because of and not in spite of my faith. So to those of you who are even now writing me off as a terrible heretic, my Christian faith is at the epicenter of my life and my beliefs. Now, people in Uganda are mistreated, not because they're bad, evil, dishonest, or cruel, but just because they love people of their own sex. Barbaric and unacceptable. Uganda has a rape crisis, it struggles against poverty, its schools are underfunded, infrastructure is poor, AIDS, nothing to do with gay people in Africa, endemic levels, yet the government believes that arresting gay men and women is a solution to their problems. Hey, why not blame it on the Jews? There's a precedent for that, isn't there? National newspapers have outed gay people in Uganda, leading to beatings and killings. Gay kids are terrified of speaking to anyone about how they feel because the police may become involved, and so they're alone and they're isolated, and quite often they take their own lives. And some people in Canada who are convinced that there is a gay agenda, a conspiracy, something sinister going on, they refuse to condemn this. I tell you, shame on you. As I say, I'm a work in progress and process, but I do know that commitment and fidelity and quality of character, sacrifice and care for others matter way more than anything else, and that the real issue here is not sex but love, and not judgment but justice. And I am, well, rather proud of believing that.